the White House says it has signed an economic partnership with Ukraine. The deal will give America access to some of Ukraine's critical minerals and natural resources. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says this will accelerate Kyiv's economic recovery and repay America for the U.S. military aid it has provided, something President Trump has been demanding. According to the Washington Post, the deal falls short of providing any concrete security guarantees to Ukraine, but it does affirm a, quote, long-term strategic alignment with the United States. Joining us now, Democratic member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut. Thank you for joining us. What do you make of this agreement?
It's nonsense. It just is. Most of the minerals that are available for exploitation in Ukraine are in the parts of Ukraine that are controlled by Russia. And so this agreement doesn't really mean much if Russia continues to own eastern Ukraine and continues to march towards Kyiv. And right now, all indications are that Donald Trump's policy is to hand Ukraine to Vladimir Putin. And in that case, this agreement isn't worth the paper that it's written on. Vladimir Putin isn't sitting down to negotiate for one simple reason, because Donald Trump is telling him, I am not going to continue to support Ukraine militarily, no matter what, whether you sit down at the table or if you don't sit down at the table. So Vladimir Putin looks at that and says, why would I negotiate? You're telling me you are giving up on Ukraine. So if I just continue to fight the war, I will ultimately own everything I have now, or potentially everything, including Kyiv. So this agreement means nothing if the Trump policy is, as it is today, to hand over Ukraine to Vladimir Putin. That's the direction that we are heading in. And right now, there is no sign that Vladimir Putin's giving up on the war, and no sign that we're ever getting any deal on minerals, because Vladimir Putin's going to be in charge.
So, Senator, how do you interpret the comments coming from the White House from Scott Bessent, for example, that this is some sort of a security guarantee because the United States isn't going to want to be doing business in Ukraine with Ukrainians and have those business interests attacked? I mean, we're murky on the details of this deal yet. We haven't really got them. But we have had Scott Bessent come out kind of saying that they want a free, sovereign and independent Ukraine, for example. Well, that would go against the idea that Russia could just walk in 3 years' time and take Ukraine.
Yeah, these guys lie. I mean, they lie. That's not true, right? Donald Trump spent all of the last year of Biden's presidency trying to kill aid for Ukraine. If Donald Trump got his way, Ukraine wouldn't have any weapons right now. Donald Trump has no plans to resupply Ukraine. And by the way, Ukraine's going to start running out of bullets and start running out of serious weaponry by the summer and fall of this year. That's why Putin continues to march forward, refuses to sit down at the negotiating table. So, there are all sorts of instances in which the president's national security team goes out and tells a story that isn't true. What is true, unfortunately, is that Trump has decided that he will never support any additional weapons for Ukraine. Europe will try to fill in the breach, but there are certain weapon systems that only the United States can provide. And without us, Vladimir Putin ultimately is going to win this war. That's just the truth, no matter what Scott Bessent or Marco Rubio says.
And Willie, from the New York Times, this is Scott Bessent, the quote. This agreement signals clearly to Russia that the Trump administration is committed to a peace process centered on a free, sovereign, and prosperous Ukraine over the long term, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said in a statement. President Trump envisioned this partnership between the American people and the Ukrainian people to show both sides' commitment to lasting peace and prosperity in Ukraine. And to be clear, no state or person who financed or supplied the Russian war machine will be allowed to benefit from the reconstruction of Ukraine. Willie.
Yeah, we'll see if that holds up, because as the senator points out, otherwise giving Vladimir Putin everything he wants. I want to turn you, Senator, to the floor speech you made on Tuesday in the Senate on the 100th day of this administration. You also wrote an op-ed for Fox News talking about the corruption that you lay out in this administration just in the first 100 days. It's a part of the story of this administration that I think doesn't get a lot of attention because there's just frankly so much else going on. But where do you see the most egregious examples of corruption here?
Yeah, really the story of the first 100 days is a story of mass-scale corruption. This is the most corrupt White House that we have ever seen in the history of the country. Listen, the future of Pete Hegseth is interesting to me, but the most important thing happening right now is Donald Trump's attempt to normalize corruption, to do it at such a scale, at such a dizzying scale, that America and the media, frankly, just kind of accepts it. The meme coin alone is the most corrupt thing an American president has ever done. Donald Trump has set up a crypto coin in which any CEO, any foreign oligarch, any Saudi prince can send him millions of dollars secretly online. He just last week announced that he is monetizing the White House in order to prompt individuals to buy his meme coin. He is going to give exclusive tours of the people's house, the White House, if you give him money through his meme coin. This is extraordinary. If people were selling access to City Hall as a first selectman or a mayor in Connecticut, you would get run out of town on a rail. And yet, because it's Donald Trump and he's corrupt every single day, everybody just kind of shrugs their shoulders. The problem here is that if he gets away with this, then corruption does become normalized. Almost every single big corporation that gave him a check for his inauguration has had federal lawsuits or investigations against them dropped. It's just an open secret that if you support the president financially, he will do whatever you want when it comes to business you have before the federal government. So, yes, I think we have to talk about this a lot more. I think the country has to talk about this a lot more, because if you don't, then future presidents, future governors are going to be able to get away with stealing the people's money, because we've all kind of looked the other way when Donald Trump did it at scale.
And you lay out many more examples of this in that Fox News piece that people can check out. Democratic Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut. Senator, thanks as always. We appreciate it.